Give it a few seconds.
Take your time.
Yep, looks like we're live.
We're live. Bismillah.
Take your time.
Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Indeed, all praises are due to Allah. We send peace and salutations upon our Prophet. We welcome you to another sitting, another evening of lectures, or of a lecture in the series of lectures of the Protection from the Fire series. And we are joined by our noble Sheikh Muhammad al-Maliki, who will be delivering the lecture on the topic of love for the sake of Allah, which is being signed by our interpreter Tom Mould, and this is all under the aegis and banner of Islam for Deaf. And we also have the director, Sheikh Abdul Hakim Wilson, on the line. So we welcome you to another, and we say to our Sheikh Muhammad al-Maliki, فَلْيَتَفَضَّلْ مَشْكُورًا. He may please let him begin, and may Allah open up for him in tonight's lecture.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام الأتمان الأكملان على محمد رسول الله سيد الأولين والآخرين وإمام الأنبياء والمرسلين والشافع المشفع يوم الدين وعلى آله الطيبين وأزواجه الطاهرات أمهات المؤمنين وصحابته الغر الميامين ومن استنى بسنته واهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، أولا أرحب بالجميع فأقول السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Indeed, all praises are due to Allah. We send peace and salutations in the most complete way upon the Prophet. Peace and blessings be upon him and upon his family and his pure wives and those who follow them until the day of resurrection. And I welcome all of the listeners and all of the audience to tonight's lecture with the welcoming of Islam. Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you.
حديثنا في هذه العشية هو أحد أسباب الوقاية من النار، ألا وهو المحبة في الله. نعم.
The topic of tonight's lecture is one part of our series, the means of protection from the fire, and the specific topic of tonight is the love of Allah and how it protects one from the fire.
طبعا نحن نتكلم عن المحبة في الله، المحبة بين المسلمين في الله.
So that's the love that the Muslims have amongst one another for the sake of Allah.
الحب في الله عبادة عظيمة جدا، ولهذا قال الله عز وجل وجبت أو قال حقت محبتي للمتحابين في، أي أن حب الله لعبده متحقق إذا كان العبد يحب إخوانه المسلمين.
And this is an act of worship, a great act of worship. And that's because Allah has told us that whosoever loves another individual from the creation for his sake, i.e. for Allah's sake, then that makes that individual beloved to Allah the Most High.
وفي الحديث أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال في حديث أبي الدرداء الذي أخرجه الطبراني بسند صحيح، قال ما من رجلين تحابا في الله إلا كان أحبهما إلى الله أشدهما حبا لصاحبه.
شيخنا عفوا، الحديث ما من رجلين
تحابا في الله إلا كان أحبهما إلى الله أشدهما حبا لصاحبه، يعني الذي هو أكثر حبا عند الله، الذي يحبه الله أكثر هو الذي يحب صاحبه أكثر.
Barakallahu feekum. And this is, as the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said in the hadith that was reported by the Imam at-Tabarani, that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, there are not two men or two individuals who love one another for the sake of Allah, except that Allah loves more. Allah loves more the one who loves his brother more than his brother does.
والحب في الله ولله كما جاء في الحديث هو أوثق عرى الإيمان. قال صلى الله عليه وسلم: أوثق عرى الإيمان الحب في الله والبغض في الله.
And loving for the sake of Allah and loving for Allah is one of the strongest ties of Iman, or one of the strongest ties of faith, as the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, indicated in the hadith with this wording.
وأيضا في الحديث أنه صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: من أحب لله، من أحب في الله وأبغض في الله وأعطى في الله ومنع في الله فقد استكمل الإيمان.
And also in the narration of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, where he said, whosoever loves for the sake of Allah and hates for the sake of Allah, and gives for the sake of Allah, and refrains or doesn't give for the sake of Allah, then indeed they have completed faith.
وهذا يعني أنك تحب هذا الإنسان لإيمانه، لصلاحه، لتقواه، ولو كان ليس هو الأعلى رتبة بين الناس، ولا الأغنى مالا، ولا يعني الأجمل خلقة، لكنه على استقامة على أمر الله، لذلك أنت تحبه.
And this is because the individual, they love the other person they love the other person due to their uprightness in terms of their faith, in terms of the piety that they have, and in terms of the goodness that they have. They don't love the individual because they have a certain status in society, nor because they are rich, or nor because they are beautiful. Rather, they love them because they have this establishment upon Allah's orders and his affairs, and this is the root and the essence of their love.
أيضا المحبة في الله تورث صاحبها خيرا كثيرا في الدنيا. قد جاء في حديث أبي أمامة صدي بن عجلان الباهلي رضي الله تعالى عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: ما من عبد أحب عبدا لله إلا أكرمه الله عز وجل. أخرجه أحمد بسند جيد. وهذا يشمل إكرام الله له بتوفيقه للعلم النافع والعمل الصالح والإيمان الكامل والنجاة من النار، فالله عز وجل يوفقه بسبب حبه لأخيه. نعم.
And this love that an individual has for their brother or sister Muslim, it also bears many fruits for the individual in the worldly life. And we see this from the narration that was reported by Abu Umama, may Allah be pleased with him, where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said that indeed there is no slave from the slaves of Allah who loves another slave of Allah, except that Allah gives that slave nobility due to the love that they have for their brother or sister. And this was a hadith, a narration that was reported by Imam Ahmad with a sound chain. So this nobility that Allah grants the individual who loves for the sake of Allah, this is a nobility that is actualized and is realized through a great many things. That includes beneficial knowledge that person will acquire, righteous deeds that they may perform, soundness of faith, and also ultimately prevention and savior from the fire.
والحب في الله يكسب العبد حلاوة يجدها في قلبه، كما في حديث أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عند أحمد والحاكم وصححه الذهبي، أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: من سره أن يجد حلاوة الإيمان فليحب المرء لا يحبه إلا لله، يعني ليس لماله ولا لمنصبه ولا لشهرته، وإنما لله جل وعلا.
And also, through loving another individual for the sake of Allah, the person can actually taste and benefit the sweetness of faith. And it's been reported on the authority of Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with him, and collected by Imam Ahmad and also Al-Hakim, and it was declared as authentic by the Imam al-Dhahabi that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, whosoever desires to taste the sweetness of Iman, or the sweetness of faith, then let them love for the sake of Allah. And this is a means for the individual to actualize faith. I think we've lost the Sheikh.
Yes, he's just texting him a few seconds. He'll be here. He'll be back with us, inshallah. I think
Okay.
he's just recharging his phone again.
Alhamdulillah. So, if you have any questions about the topic, please send them over to Abdul Hakim in the chat. Any questions for the Sheikh, that would also be good.
Yeah, we're going to be doing, inshallah, the Q&A in the last 10 minutes of the lecture, which will be approximately about 7:50, inshallah, all being well. But,
Excellent.
just to more or less to just elaborate on what the Sheikh was talking about until he comes in, Akil, if that's possible.
Yeah, so I suppose what's striking, not just about this lecture, but about the series really, or what struck me is the number of different means that there are for us to safeguard ourselves from the fire. And that's, I suppose, it reflects the relationship that the individual has with themselves and with Allah and with others. So it's a great mercy of Allah that He's made all of these acts of worship means for us to seek protection from the fire and to seek his mercies.
Alhamdulillah.
So I think it's a very valuable series, I think.
Yeah, mashallah. It's something that we're going to continue every Sunday, inshallah, all being well.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, the Sheikh is back with us.
Assalamu rahmatullah.
Something happened with the computer, I don't know. طيب نكمل إن شاء الله.
إن شاء الله. بسم الله شيخنا.
نعم. وأيضا الحب في الله يوجد حلاوة للإيمان في قلب المؤمن، كما جاء في الحديث عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال: من أحب أن يجد طعم الإيمان فليحب المرء لا يحبه إلا لله. وهذا قريب من حديث أبي هريرة.
And to reiterate the point that we've just made, that the individual, when they want to taste the sweetness of faith, then they should endeavor to love for the sake of Allah. And it's been reported that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said in a similar hadith to the hadith of Abu Huraira, whosoever wishes to find or taste the sweetness of faith, then let them love for the sake of Allah.
والحب في الله أيضا يورث المرء هذا الأمر الذي هو حلاوة الإيمان. جاء في حديث أنس المتفق على صحته أنه صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: ثلاث من كن فيه وجد حلاوة الإيمان، أن يكون الله ورسوله أحب إليه مما سواهما، وأن يحب المرء لا يحبه إلا لله، وأن يكره أن يعود في الكفر بعد إذ أنقذه الله منه، كما يكره أن يلقى في النار. نعم.
And we also see the benefits that loving for the sake of Allah has on an individual in terms of their faith. Again, in the narration reported by Anas, may Allah be pleased with him, and it was collected, a narration that was agreed upon, so collected by Bukhari and Muslim, that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said that there are three traits that if the individual has, they will taste the sweetness of faith. First, that Allah and His Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, are more beloved to that individual than all those other than them. The second is that an individual loves another and they do not love except for the sake of Allah. And the third is that they hate the idea that they would revert or that they would return to a state of disbelief after having believed, just as they would hate to be thrown into the fire.
قال شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية رحمه الله تعالى في مجموع الفتاوى عن هذا الحديث، قال: أخبر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أن هذه الثلاث من كن فيه وجد حلاوة الإيمان، لأن وجد الحلاوة بالشيء يتبع المحبة له، فمن أحب شيئا أو اشتهاه إذا حصل له مراده فإنه يجد الحلاوة واللذة والسرور بذلك. نعم.
And Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah be pleased with him, he comments on this narration that we've just taken, these 3 points, and he said that here the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, told us that the individual who has these 3 traits have tasted the sweetness of faith, because they have attained, or they have reached the intent of the beloved.
والمتحابون في الله هم أولياء الله. قد جاء في حديث عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما المخرج عند الحاكم في المستدرك بسند صححه الذهبي، أنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: إن لله عبادا ليسوا بأنبياء ولا شهداء، يغبطهم الشهداء والنبيون يوم القيامة لقربهم من الله تعالى ومجلسهم منه، فجثى أعرابي على ركبتيه، أي برك على ركبتيه، فقال: يا رسول الله صفهم لنا وجلهم لنا، يعني اكشف لنا الغطاء عنهم، من يكونون؟ قال: قوم من أقناء الناس، من نزاع القبائل، من أقناء الناس أي من بسطاء الناس عاديين، تصادقوا في الله وتحابوا في الله، يضع الله عز وجل لهم يوم القيامة منابر من نور، يخاف الناس ولا يخافون، يخاف الناس يعني يوم القيامة ولا يخافون، هم أولياء الله عز وجل الذين لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah. And it's been reported on the authority, or these people, these individuals who love one another for the sake of Allah, they are the awliya, they are those individuals who are close to Allah. And it's been reported on the authority of Abdullah ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with them both, and collected by Al-Hakim in his book Al-Mustadrak, that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, indeed, Allah has a number of slaves who are not prophets, nor are they from the martyrs. Yet on the day of resurrection, both the prophets and the martyrs will envy them due to their closeness to Allah on that day. And when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said this, there was one of the Bedouin Arabs who sat up and he paid attention. So he was drawn to this statement and he said, "O Messenger of Allah, describe them to us. Make their affair known to us. Explain to us who these people are." So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, responded, and he said that indeed they are a normal people, i.e. there's nothing special about them, but they have sincerity amongst one another and they love one another for the sake of Allah. And as a result of this, Allah will make for them manabir, He will make for them minarets from light. And on that day, the people will be scared and they will be afraid due to the punishment of Allah that's impending for many of them. Yet these people on these minarets of light, they will not be afraid. And they are the close friends of Allah, those who لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون, those who will not be afraid and they will not be sad.
وبين النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم حال هؤلاء الناس فقال هم عباد من عباد الله من بلدان شتى وقبائل شتى من شعوب القبائل لم تكن بينهم أرحام يتواصلون بها ولا دنيا يتبادلون بها يتحابون بروح الله يجعل الله وجوههم نورا ويجعل لهم منابر من لؤلؤ قدام الناس يعني أمام الناس ولا يفزعون ويخاف الناس ولا يخافون. ولا يفزعون يعني من البعث كما قال الله عز وجل ولا يفزعهم يعني قال الله عز وجل وهم من فزع يومئذ آمنون. نعم.
And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he further explained the condition of these people. And he said, they are indeed slaves from the slaves of Allah from different and disparate lands, i.e. they are not from the same geographical place. And they're from a number of different tribes. So relation hasn't brought them together. The life of the dunya, the worldly life, hasn't brought them together. Rather, what has brought them together is the love, the mutual love that they have for one another for the sake of Allah. Allah on that day, He will illuminate their faces and He will put them upon minarets of pearls, exquisite minarets. And on that day, they will not be afraid. And on that day, Shaykhana, وَهُمْ مِنْ فَزَعٍ يَوْمَئِذٍ آمِنُونَ. And they will be secure or safe on that day from any type of fright or dread.
وهم مع ما يحصل لهم من خير في الدنيا الذي ذكرناه إكرام الله لهم في الدنيا بتوفيقهم وكذلك ما يجدونه من خير من حلاوة الإيمان التي يجدوها في قلوبهم وأيضا ما يجدونه في الآخرة من كونهم آمنون عند البعث ويجلسهم الله على منابر النور أيضا هم يظلهم الله بظل يوم لا ظل إلا ظله كما في الحديث عند مسلم من حديث أبي هريرة أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الله تعالى يقول يوم القيامة أين المتحابون بجلالي اليوم أظلهم في ظلي يوم لا ظل إلا ظلي. فالذين تحابوا في الله يظلهم الله. وفي الحديث حديث أبي هريرة أيضا المتفق عليه 7 يظلهم الله في ظله يوم لا ظل إلا ظله منهم رجلان تحابا في الله اجتمعا عليه وافترقا عليه. يعني كان هذا هو سبب لقائهم واجتماعهم، وسبب افتراقهم هو الحب في الله لا غير.
So we see that Allah, He grants them nobility in the life of this world, and He gives them goodness in the life of this world. And likewise, He gives them goodness in the hereafter, in that they feel safe and they feel secure once they have been resurrected. In addition to this, Allah the Most High, He puts them in His shade. He shields them with His shade on the day in which there is no shade except for the shade of Allah. And it's been reported by Imam Muslim on the authority of Abu Huraira that indeed Allah will say on the day of resurrection, where are those people who loved one another for the sake of Allah? I will indeed shade you in my shade on this day in which there is no shade except mine. And it's also been reported on the authority of Abu Huraira by Bukhari and Muslim, may Allah be pleased with them both, that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, described 7 categories of people who will be shaded on that day in which there is no shade except for his shade. And one of these categories are those men, those individuals who met one another, and their meeting and their departing was solely for the sake of Allah, i.e., what had brought them together was their mutual love for one another for the sake of Allah.
والحب في الله ولله سبب لدخول الجنة، كما في حديث أبي هريرة عند مسلم أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: لا تدخلون الجنة حتى تؤمنوا ولا تؤمنوا حتى تحابوا أولا أدلكم على شيء إذا فعلتموه تحاببتم أفشوا السلام بينكم. في هذا الحديث يقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: لا تدخلون الجنة حتى تؤمنوا، وهذا أمر معلوم أنه لا يدخل الجنة إلا المؤمن بالله، أما الكافر فمحله النار. نعم.
And it's been reported by Imam Muslim. So also from the benefits of loving for the sake of Allah is that it is a cause for an individual to enter the paradise, as has been reported by Imam Muslim on the authority of Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with him, who said that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, indeed you will not enter the paradise until you believe, and you will not believe until وَلَا تُؤْمِنُونَ حَتَّى تَحَابُوا, and you will not believe until you love one another. Shall I not indicate or direct you towards something that if you were to do it, you would love one another? And the companion said, of course, direct us towards this. And he said, peace and blessings be upon him, spread the salam, the greeting, the Islamic salutation amongst you, spread it. So here, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, you will not enter the paradise until you believe. This is something that's very well known, that a condition for entering paradise is that the believer believes, or the person believes. And the abode for the believer is the paradise, and the abode for those who do not believe is the fire.
Okay. 1 second, please. Sheikh, are you here? Yes?
Yes.
Because we cannot see you, is it possible to have short bursts of you and Tom signing and him talking? Because otherwise, if you can't hear, you're just seeing Tom stand still and you don't know if there's any talking going on. Because usually when we can see you, we know that you're talking, and then they'll wait for Tom to sign. If they only can see Tom standing there with no one else,
Right.
You understand what I mean, yeah?
So you want me to appear?
You can either appear. If you don't want to appear, then just do like short.
No.
They do paragraph, then Tom, so there's not a long waiting, so people don't just see Tom. For the deaf community who's watching, they just see Tom standing there for probably a minute, and they don't know if you're talking. Obviously, I can't hear you, so they're waiting. If they can see you.
No problem.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, جزاك
طيب.
الله.
نعم. فالنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أخبرنا أن التحابب في الله سبب لدخول الجنة. نعم.
So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he told us that having love for one another, it's a reason for us or a means for us to enter the paradise.
والواجب على المسلم أن ينتقي من يصحبه ويحبه في الله، وهو كل مؤمن بالله مقيم على دين الله. نعم.
So what's obligatory or what's fitting for the Muslim is to be careful of those who they accompany and those who they are companions with, and they should make effort to make them good companions and to love them for the sake of Allah.
الخلاصة في درسنا هذه الليلة هو أن الحب في الله سبب من أسباب الوقاية من النار، وهو سبب لدخول الجنة ولحصول الكرامة للمسلم في الدنيا والآخرة.
So the summary of tonight's lecture is that to love for the sake of Allah, it's a means by which we can seek or we can attain salvation from the fire. In addition to this, it's a means by which we can enter the paradise. And in addition to this, it's a means by which Allah can grant us nobility in the life of this world.
مما ينبغي أيضا هو أن يخبر المسلم أخاه المسلم إذا أحبه في الله ولله، كما جاء في الحديث أنه صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: إذا أحب أحدكم أخاه فليخبره، لأن هذا يدخل السرور على قلبه، كما جاء في الحديث أيضا سرور، لما سئل عن أفضل العمل قال: سرور تدخله على قلب مسلم. نعم.
In addition, it's befitting for the Muslim to let their brother or sister Muslim know, obviously this is the brother Muslim with the brother Muslim, to let them know that they love them for the sake of Allah. And this is because the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, if one of you loves your brother for the sake of Allah, then they should inform them. And this is because it will make the person that you say it to, the addressee, it will make them happy, and it will give them peace in their hearts. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said that indeed the best of actions is that you make another Muslim happy.
ولهذه المحبة لوازم، منها الصدق مع أخيك الذي تحبه في الله، تكون معه صادقا في محبتك، لا مدعيا أنك تحبه ولكنك في الحقيقة تبغضه.
And this professed love that you have, or this love that you have for the Muslim, there are certain things that it necessitates. From the things that it necessitates is that you are truthful in your love. That when you say it to an individual, you do actually love them for the sake of Allah, and you don't detest them or you don't despise them.
ومن لوازم هذه المحبة النصح له، كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في حديث عمار، قال: بايعنا الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم، ثم قال: والنصح لكل مسلم.
Also from the necessities of this love that you have for your brother Muslim is that you give them good and sincere advice. As Ammar mentioned, we gave the pledge of allegiance to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, that we would give sincere advice to each and every Muslim.
وأيضا من لوازم هذه المحبة أن تتعاهده وتسأل عنه إذا غاب، وإذا ظهرت عليه علامات المرض أو التعب أو الحزن فأنت تتفقده. نعم.
Also, from the after effects or the impact of this love is that you show concern for your brother Muslim. So, for example, if they disappear or you don't hear from them for some time, then you contact them and you ask after them. Or if they show and manifest some illness or something, that you show concern. Or if they're down, that you ask about them, that you interact with the individual.
كما هو أيضا مهم حتى تستمر هذه المحبة أن تدعو له بظهر الغيب، كما جاء في الحديث أن دعاء المسلم لأخيه بظهر الغيب مستجاب، وأن الملك يؤمن عليه ويقول لك بمثل.
And also that it's important, so that this love continues and it grows and develops, that the individual supplicates on behalf of their brother while the brother doesn't know. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, told us that this is a supplication that's answered, and that when the individual makes it, the angel says Ameen. The angel says, I agree, and agrees with the supplication.
وأيضا من لوازم هذه المحبة أن تدافع عنه في غيبته إذا اغتابه أحد أو سمعته يخطط لإلحاق الأذى به، فأنت تدافع عنه، كما في الحديث أنه من ذب عن عرض أخيه أن الله عز وجل يوم القيامة يأجره أجرا عظيما.
And also that the individual, they defend the person that they love for the sake of Allah while they are not present. So, for example, if they hear someone speaking ill of them, that or casting aspersions about them or throwing hate towards them, that they defend their brother Muslim. And this is because the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, mentioned, and whosoever defends the honor of their brother on the day of resurrection, Allah will give them a great reward.
ومن لوازم هذه المحبة أن تمنعه من الظلم، كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم انصر أخاك ظالما أو مظلوما. قالوا يا رسول الله عرفنا كيف ننصره مظلوما فكيف ننصره ظالما؟ قال تأخذ على يديه حتى يدع الظلم.
And also from the necessities of this love is that you prevent them from oppression. As the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, give aid to your brother whether they are oppressed or whether they are the oppressor. And the companions asked, O Messenger of Allah, we understand how to aid them if they are being oppressed, but how do we aid them if they are the oppressor? And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said that you help them to stop making this oppression.
هذا جملة ما أردنا الكلام فيه حول هذا المانع من موانع دخول النار، وهو المحبة في الله. ولكن نختم بذكر العنصر الذي ينمي هذا الحب ويقويه، وهو ما بينه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بقوله ألا أدلكم على شيء إذا فعلتموه تحاببتم أفشوا السلام بينكم. وقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أفشوا أي أشيعوا السلام، أي التحية بتحية الإسلام السلام، وهي معناها دعاء بأن يحل الله عز وجل سلاما وسلامة من كل أذى لهذا الذي ألقيت عليه التحية في الدنيا والآخرة. نعم.
So I have given you or presented a collection of that which I wanted to about this preventative measure against entering the fire. and that's love for the sake of Allah. But there is another point that I would like to raise that supports this. It supports having love for the sake of Allah, and it's what we alluded to before in the wording of the narration of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Should I not direct you to something that if you were to do, you would love one another? And the companion said yes, and he said, spread the salam, spread the greetings of peace amongst you. So here the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he was ordering the Muslims to make this greeting widespread to each and everyone. And this greeting, in actual fact, it's a supplication that you make for your fellow Muslim, that Allah gives them salam, he gives them peace, and also he gives them, I suppose, health from anything that may cause them illness or cause them deficiency in this life and the hereafter.
أسأل الله أن يجعلنا وإياكم من المتحابين فيه وبجلاله، ومن الذين يحبهم الله عز وجل لحبهم إخوانهم في الله، ومن الذين يظلهم الله عز وجل يوم القيامة في ظل عرشه يوم لا ظل إلا ظله، وأن يجعلنا ممن يجلسهم على منابر النور، وممن يقيهم عذاب النار ويدخلهم الجنة دار الرحمة والكرامة والسلام، إنه سبحانه وتعالى ولي ذلك والقادر عليه. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه.
جزاكم الله خيرا وبارك فيكم شيخنا. So I ask Allah the Most High to make us from those who love one another for the sake of Allah, and to make us from those that through or due to this love that Allah loves us. And I ask him to make us all from those who Allah shades with the shade of his throne on the day that there is no shade except for his shade. And I ask him to make us from those who in the hereafter sit upon minarets of light, and that he makes us of those who are prevented from going near to the fire, and from those who are enter his eternal abode of peace. For indeed he is the one who is all able to do such, and may he shower peace and salutations and blessings upon our Prophet Muhammad and upon his family and companions and those who follow them to the day of resurrection.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair.
Yeah.
I have just a few questions here, if I can
Yeah.
them out to you. Is that okay?
Yeah. That's why we ended up earlier.
Okay. One of the questions is to love for the sake of Allah when parents not Muslim tell him to leave Islam. How? You want to translate that, Akil?
Sorry, can you repeat it? I didn't get the last bit of it. To love parents who
Love for the parents for the sake of Allah if they're not Muslim and they want you to leave Islam. How should one deal with that, basically?
Okay. فالسؤال بالنسبة للحب في الله، كيف نحب أبوينا أو الوالدين إذ كان كفارا؟ نعم، كيف نحبهم؟ وما توجيهاتكم حول حب الوالدين الكفار؟ بارك الله فيكم.
أولا الحب حبان أو نوعان، حب فطري جبلي يخلق مع الإنسان مثل حبه لوالديه، حبه لزوجه، حبه لأولاده، حبه لقراباته، وهذا لا يلام عليه. وهناك حب تعبدي وهو حبه للمؤمنين أقرباء أو غير أقرباء، فلا بد من التفريق بين الأمرين. الحب الجبلي لا يؤجر عليه الإنسان ولا يأثم فيه، لأن هذا أمر جبلي. لابد أن ينضاف إليه الحب التعبدي حتى يؤجر الإنسان، والحب التعبدي لا يكون إلا للمؤمنين. إذا علم هذا فإن المسلم الذي أحد والديه أو كلاهما كافر أو كان له زوجة غير مسلمة كأن تكون يعني كتابية، لأن المسلم لا يتزوج إلا مسلمة أو كتابية يهودية أو نصرانية، وبقيت على ديانتها، فإنه يحبها حب الزوج لزوجته، لكن يبقى الحب الذي يكون في الله، الحب الذي يكون في الله ولله، هذا لا يكون إلا مع المسلم. فإذا كان الوالد أو الوالدة أو الزوجة أو الولد مسلم، جمع حب القرابة مع حب العبادة، فصار ذاك حبا زاكيا وكان حبا كبيرا. وإذا كان أحد هؤلاء القرابات ليس على الإسلام، يبقى حب القرابة الذي فطر الله عز وجل عليه قلوب الناس، فلا يمكن للإنسان أن ينسلخ من إنسانيته فيبغض والده ويبغض والدته ويبغض زوجه ويبغض ابنه، هذا لا يمكن، بل تبقى المحبة الجبلية لا يأثم بها، ولكن لا يؤجر عليها، تبقى لا بد من أن تبقى حتى تستمر العلاقة والحياة. وأيضا مع الإحسان إلى الوالدين والزوجة غير المسلمة والابن غير المسلم، هذا يحملهم إما على الدخول في الإسلام أو على الأقل عدم إلحاق الأذى بهذا القريب المسلم، لأنهم رأوا منه يعني محبة وحسن عشرة وحسن معاملة. نعم.
So as relates to this, it's important to indicate that loving is of two types. The first is a natural type of love that the individual has for example, their partner or their children, their parents. It's a natural love that an individual instinctively has. The second is a type of love that is a love that is built upon worship, or that this love is worship in and of itself. So the first type of love is natural, and for this type of love, the individual does not receive any reward nor punishment for it. The second type of love, the love that is for the sake of Allah, this is a love that is an act in and of itself. It's an act of worship. And for an individual to be rewarded for this, it should be directed solely towards the Muslims. So if the individual has a relationship with a non-Muslim, whether it be a member of the family or the wife, because a Muslim man is permitted to marry a wife who is from the people of the book, who is not Muslim, then it's obvious in these cases that the Muslim will love these individuals. However, their love will not be for the sake of Allah. It will be a natural type of love. This is because the love for the sake of Allah, it's not directed to any except for the Muslims. So from this we can see that the parents and the partner, if they are Muslim, then the love that the individual has for them, it's a compound love of these two types. So they love them in a natural way because they are the parent, for example, or they're the partner. But in addition to this, they have an additional love for that person, which is the love, the worship-based love for them, due to the fact that they are Muslim. So it compounds this love, so it becomes even greater. If, however, the individual is only a relative, for example, and they are not Muslim, then the only type of love that the Muslim can have for that individual is the first type, and that's the natural love that the individual has. And this is because it's natural for these individuals to be loved, for you to love your parents despite the fact that they are not Muslim. And it's not natural, and it wouldn't be from humanity to force an individual to extract this love from their heart. Rather, they keep this love as a natural love that they have, so that their connection with these individuals will continue. And treating these people good, and treating especially the parents, the non-Muslim parents, well, it will only reap good rewards, because it will either encourage them to embrace al-Islam due to the goodness that they see and witness from their children, or at the very least, it will cause them to refrain from harming their child or harming Islam due to the goodness that they see. Barakallahu feekum, Shaykhana.
وفيكم بارك الله.
And just to clarify, because I do know of someone that did marry someone from the book, and the reason they married them and not had a normal relationship is because obviously they feared Allah, I should expect, and they married them because of that. So that is not, because I heard you mention that it's just exclusively for the Muslims. So if someone does marry someone from the person of the book and then marry them, rather than having a relationship with them because of the fear of Allah and because it's permissible, that does not count as loving for the sake of Allah.
فشيخنا إذا تزوج أحدة أو أحدة كتابية وتزوج بها لأنه يخاف من الله أن يكون بينه وبينها علاقة غير مشروعة، فهل يكون هذا الحب الذي له، هل هذا يكون لله عز وجل؟
لا، هنا فرق بين أن يتزوج خوفا من الوقوع في الزنا، وأن يتزوج يعني من أجل حبه إياها. فإذا كان من أجل الخوف من وقوع الزنا، هذا له أجره لأنه أحصن نفسه، ولكن تزوجه لها من أجل حبه إياها كامرأة حسناء أو كذا أو ذات خلق وهي ليست مسلمة، فهذا لا يؤجر عليه ولا يأثم على تزوجه منها إن كانت كتابية. لكن أن يكون ذلك يعني، أو كما فهمت أنا من عبد الحكيم أنها هي كتابية متمسكة تخاف الله، هذا ليس صحيحا. إن كان فهمي للسؤال هكذا فإن هذا ليس صحيحا، لأن معنى الخوف من الله هو التعبد له بالدين الصحيح الذي هو الله عز وجل ارتضاه. ومن بعد بعثة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم أخبر الله عز وجل أنه لا يقبل غير الإسلام دينا. فإن كان هذه المرأة على دينها اليهودية أو النصرانية ولو كانت متمسكة بها، لا يقال أنها هي الآن متقية لله فأنا أحبها لأنها متقية لله، لا، إن تقوى الله معناها إفراده بالعبادة، ومعناها أيضا امتثال أمر النبي الذي أرسل يعني في هؤلاء الناس. والنبي الذي أرسل في جميع بني آدم من 1400 سنة هو محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم لا غير. نعم.
بارك الله فيكم. So there is no difference. There's no difference between if this individual marries this woman from the book out of fear of of falling into fornication or illicit relationships with her, and let me repeat. No, rather there is a difference. There is a difference between the individual marrying this woman from the people of the book with the intention of marrying her due to fear of falling into illicit relationships with her, and on the other hand, marrying her because her character or her beauty is pleasing to him. So there is a difference between these two things. So if they marry with the intention of being chaste and not falling into this sin, then they can be rewarded for this, and they are rewarded for this. However, if they marry her with the intention that she has a good character and she's beautiful, etc., then they can do this, but they are not sinful if she is from the people of the book. However, if she is from the people of the book, as we can understand from this statement, and she is someone who fears Allah and has consciousness of Allah, then what's correct for her to do is to follow the call of the last messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, as she has been ordered to. And it shouldn't be said that through her practicing her faith that she is fearful of Allah and she's conscious of Allah because she hasn't answered the call of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And in order for her to be fearful, she would have to single out Allah in worship, so that she worships Allah alone. And then on top of this, she should follow the order of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, who was sent to all of mankind just little over 1440 years ago. And at that point, it was obligatory upon the people of the book to follow him.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. I think we can end with this last question. If you haven't mentioned it already, if you can do a brief summary on it then, or brief answer, is loving for the sake of Allah, alhamdulillah, you give a mashallah beneficial talk, may the people benefit from it. But how to attain that love, whether it's through prayers or du'as, or is there any particular du'as what you can do, or any particular prayers that you can do to gain the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Obviously, doing that which is obligatory, we would think is would be primary then, if you want to say that. But is there anything other than that which you can gain the love of Allah, also increase our love for the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam also?
So Abdul Hakim, this question is specific to gaining Allah's love, right?
Yeah, and to love the Messenger also.
Okay. فالسؤال شيخنا بارك الله فيكم كيف نجعل أنفسنا محبوبا لله عز وجل، وكيف نزيد نحن في حبنا للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم؟ هل هناك أدعية مخصوصة أو أعمال مخصوصة كي نحصل هذه الفضائل؟ بارك الله فيكم.
نعم، أما كيف نحصل على حب الله لنا، وكيف نحصل على زيادة من حب الله لنا، كيف نزيد من حب الله لنا، بينه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في حديث أبي هريرة عند البخاري. قال الله تعالى: من عادى لي وليا فقد آذنته بالحرب، وما تقرب إلي عبدي بأحب مما افترضت عليه، ولا يزال عبدي يتقرب إلي بالنوافل حتى أحبه، فإذا أحببته كنت سمعه الذي يسمع به، وبصره الذي يبصر به، ويده التي يبطش بها، ورجله التي يمشي بها، ولئن سألني لأعطينه، ولئن استعاذني لأعيذنه. فبين الله عز وجل في هذا الحديث أن محبة الله للعبد تحصل بمجرد الإيمان، زيادتها تحصل بالأعمال النوافل التي يقوم بها العبد، نوافل الصلاة، نوافل الصيام، نوافل الصدقة، نوافل الذكر، أي نوافل يقوم بها العبد هي ترفع من رصيده في محبة الله، فيحبه الله أكثر، يحبه أكثر. وأما كيف نكسب محبة الرسول وكيف نزيدها، أرشد إلى ذلك النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بقوله إن من أحبكم أو إن من أحبكم إلي أكثركم صلاة علي، أكثركم صلاة علي. وأيضا بين أن حبه هو يكون أكثر لنا بحسن أخلاقنا، قال إن من أحبكم إلي وأقربكم مني مجلسا يوم القيامة أحاسنكم أخلاقا. وأيضا بين أن كلما تقرر التوحيد في قلب العبد كلما أحبه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. ففي حديث أبي هريرة في البخاري أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، أن أبا هريرة سأل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: من أسعد الناس بشفاعتك يوم القيامة يا رسول الله؟ قال: من قال لا إله إلا الله خالصا من قلبه. والشفاعة منه صلى الله عليه وسلم تكون لمن يحبهم، لمن يحبهم، لا تكون لمن يبغضهم. فهذه الأمور هي من أسباب تحصيل محبة الله ومحبة الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم والزيادة فيها. أما كيف نحصل على المحبة فيما بيننا نحن المسلمين، كيف يحب أحدنا الآخر، فبينه الحديث الذي حديث أبي هريرة الذي قال فيه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: لن تدخلوا الجنة حتى تؤمنوا ولن تؤمنوا حتى تحابوا، أفلا أدلكم على شيء إذا فعلتموه تحاببتم، أفشوا السلام بينكم. فمن أراد أن يحصل عنده الحب لأخيه المسلم، لإخوانه المسلمين، وبالتالي يحصل حب الله له وحب الرسول له، فعليه بالإكثار من السلام مع المسلمين، يكثر السلام مع المسلمين. نعم.
Barakallahu fikum, Shaykhana. So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he indicated to us that that in order to attain the love of Allah, there are different means by which we can attain the love of Allah, and there are different ways that we can attain a kind of base level of love of Allah, and then an increase from. So there's a basic level of love that we can attain from Allah, and then we can attain increasing levels after this. And he explained this in the hadith that was reported by Abu Huraira, on the authority of Abu Huraira, reported by Imam al-Bukhari, where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, whosoever shows enmity or harm to one of my close worshippers, then indeed I have waged war upon them. And indeed my slaves do not draw near to me with anything more beloved to me than that which I have made obligatory upon them. And my slaves do not continue to draw near to me with the optional acts of worship until I love them. And when I love them, I am their hearing by which they see, their sight, their hearing by which they hear, their sight by which they see, their hand by which they strike, and their foot by which they walk. And if they were to ask me, I would give to them. And if they were to seek my refuge, I would give them refuge. So we learn from this that attaining the love of Allah at a basic level is through our faith in Allah the Most High. And then we can increase this love that Allah has for us through the optional acts of worship, whatever they may be, from the prayer, from fasting, from making remembrance of Allah the Most High. So we can attain Allah's love in this manner. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he also indicated how we can attain his love, where he said, indeed, those of you who are most beloved to me are those of you who are the greatest in sending salutations upon me. So he explained this, and also explained that having good character is a means of drawing close to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, because he said that on the day of resurrection, those who will be closest to me are those who have the best character. And in addition to this, the monotheism or the tawheed that the individual has within their heart, the strength of it, it strengthens the love that the individual can attain from the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And that's the evidence for this is the narration reported by Abu Huraira, collected by Imam al-Bukhari, where Abu Huraira asked the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, O Messenger of Allah, who will be the most content of the people on the day of resurrection with your intercession? And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, those who say La ilaha illallah, those who say there is no deity of worthy of worship in truth except for Allah, sincerely from their hearts, i.e. they will attain the intercession of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And it's known that none can attain his intercession except those whom he loves. So we see that there are levels of love, and there are levels of increasing those acts or increasing the love that the individual has. Now, this was the response of the Sheikh. May Allah preserve him.
بقي موضوع كيف ننمي الحب بيننا وهو بإفشاء
نعم عفوا شيخنا. And also what remains is how we can develop love amongst each other, among us. And we've alluded to this in the hadith of Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with him, where he said, where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, shall I not tell you something that if you were to do it, you would love one another? And he indicated that you should spread the salam, the greetings of salam amongst you. So this is from the greatest reasons and the greatest means of us attaining love amongst one another.
MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair, Akin. And thank you very much, Tom. Allah guide you. Again, MashaAllah, beneficial lecture from the Sheikh, and may Allah preserve him, and may Allah reward him, and give us Jannah, inshallah, hereafter, and life of ease in the grave, which is coming, and may Allah preserve us, inshallah. And again, Tom, thank you very much for you interpreting. Again, brothers, we'll see you again, inshallah, next week, Sunday, with another beneficial lecture, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاكم الله خير. Thank you, Tom.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. وإياكم شيخنا، حفظكم الله.
الله يحفظكم. السلام.